Hello, welcome to another weekly live stream. I'm trying to use low latency tonight, so hopefully the chat is a little more responsive. If you're on and want to say hi, let me know and we'll see. We'll test it out. Before we get started, let me thank my patrons. You guys are great. Yeah, we're coming up to the end of the year, so the expenses are racking up. It's useful to have that little teeny bit of income, so thanks a lot, guys. So tonight we're going to be working on textures. If you have never tried to tile a texture before, then you are probably going to learn how much fun that is. We're going to be using well, let me talk a little bit about what I already did. So basically, since last week, I've only been working on the male model. So I'm trying to get at least the male and female ready for the next release, which will be before Halloween, in time before Halloween, so people could make some costumes and stuff for the new character types. If I get this process streamlined, I'll do maybe a couple of the other races too, but we'll see. There's always like a million things to go wrong in the process of moving animations around and things. So, house router just went down. So anyway, if you're on and can chat, tell me how long it takes before it shows up on your screen. So tonight we're going to be working on texturing, and the motivation for this is that I want to make a pumpkin for the Halloween release. And so we will, hold on, let me load the shaper tool. So I added the ability to make spheres. Because we're working at lower latency, if you guys let me know if the quality is suffering, because that could be a reason not to do this. I figured since I'm not actually playing the game tonight, maybe we could suffer through the lower quality and have a slightly more reactive chat. So I'm interested to see if that's actually true. So now I can create block types. I've already created a block type. So this is the pumpkin sphere. It's not fully set up yet, obviously, because that's not a pumpkin texture. But I want to try to streamline this. So I've got the side texture and the top, or the side material and top material set up. They're just using that mortared rock for now. So when I create them in Photopea or Photopia, whatever it's called, we can just load them up and I won't have to set all that stuff up and risk making a syntax error and so on. But that's what we're aiming for. These spherical blocks, I want to texture that with a pumpkin texture. That's where we're aiming tonight. I think we can do it depending on how much exposition I give for how this is done. So this is a application called Photopea or Photopia. I call it Photopia. All right. Glad you're back, Ron. If you happen to notice how fast that chat comes up on your screen and whether the quality's good or bad, because I'm running in low latency mode tonight. We're seeing how that works. So, nice. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to start with a new project. By the way, this is basically a free online Photoshop clone. Nice. That anybody can use. I went ahead and paid for a subscription because I think it's totally cool. And if you're a Photoshop junkie and don't want to pay Photoshop prices, which I actually already pay for Photoshop too, but this one's super convenient. So let's call this pumpkin. And we're going to make I think standard Mythruna stuff is 256 by 256. And we'll create with a white background, that's fine. This is not where we're going to end. This is not what we're going to end up with, really. Yeah, I never learned GIMP. I learned Photoshop a long time ago to do some website designs for NASA. They didn't end up using any of my designs, but I had to learn it over a weekend because we were an overflow contractor for Netscape. Yeah, that's dating me because Netscape hasn't been a thing in forever. And I hear GIMP is changing their name. Is that not true? So anyway, we've got, let's just play around with this idea that you've got a texture, and of course I still have to sometimes, no, I don't want, where's the pencil? It's under here. Pencil. Okay, so let's say you've got a texture that's got, you know, dots all over it. You know, some of them go off the edge. Right. Now we want to tile this texture. And you might say, well, what? Those look like really, that's because I've got it zoomed in. I tend to zoom in by default. So that's the texture, right? And you want to tile it, maybe put a few more here, right? So, yeah, so you've got this, and obviously as is, it's not going to tile, right? If we make a new project for playing around, let's make this one big. I think 1000 by 1000 will still fit in my view. I'm actually going to, I can't maximize. If I maximize, then I won't be able to see you guys. So let's just make it as big as we can. Okay, so we are at 66. There we go. About 100%. Okay, so if I come over here and you know, try to tile these together, obviously they don't tile, right? And they definitely won't tile this direction either. So that's bad. There are ways to sort of deal with this issue. If you have a really complicated texture, one way to do it is to essentially, let's just duplicate this, duplicate. Okay, so you take them and you put them in, see, will Photoshop let me, or Photopea let me do that? Yeah. So you line them up so that each one oh, okay, yeah. If I'm in that mode, control click should alright, which one is this now? Okay, that's the regular background. So, oh, because background is not a this is the first time I have gotten to play BG3 as well as getting to see you go at it. Thanks again for doing these. Oh, you're very welcome. So we need one more. Let's turn off the background. And so what we've done is we've sort of highlighted the seams that we saw over here, right? These seams. And so what you can do, if you have a really complicated texture, sometimes you can then overlay the original texture over the, like, if we duplicate this one more time and turn that back on, put it over the top. So you can come in here and sort of use the original one to repair an area right here. So I've got this, you know, this the original texture overlaid over these seams, but I've got opacity set in such a way that I can see what I'm doing. And then the idea would be that you would come and you would erase like a big area here, a big area here. I think I can show you that real quick. This isn't actually helpful for what we're doing today, but it will be sort of educational just the same. So if we come in here and we erase that part, you know, erase that part, erase, you know, sort of, oh, I did too far. So let's back up a little bit. Actually, take all the erasers off. I think I'm doing them too far. Okay, so we want to make sure not to cross that center line when we do this. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to drink like that. I crossed the center line before, which was a mistake. So we do like that. We come in here and we do like that. We come in here and we do like that. So if I come back and I make this full opacity again, you know, we don't have seams anymore. We don't have that sort of tiling seams. I've screwed up my, yeah, this is if you had a real complicated thing, but we don't have these, let me pick a arrow again. So we don't have these seams anymore. We got rid of them and we replaced them with, you know, bad cropping. And so it's really not what you do. You come in here with a little more discretion. So you would use a smaller, I maybe should have used a more complicated texture to show you, but you want to keep the, you want to get rid of these seams, but you also don't want to slice through important parts of your real texture. So, so it's okay for us to get rid of all of this. And it's okay for us to come down just to the line, just to kind of there. And we can get rid of all this up here. We want to keep the part that's, you know, going across there. Maybe this isn't as obvious as I wanted it to be because of the colors that I picked, but so we're kind of making sure. So if I, yeah, so, hey Gaming Dan, how's it going? So I don't want to spend too long on this, but let me kind of finish what I'm doing here. But anyway, the idea is you want to try not to create new seams as you get rid of this thing that you're using to just cover your seams. And it's not, maybe it's not obvious to you what I've done here. But let me turn off all these backgrounds and you'll see what I've kind of done with the, so, you know, I've taken this, actually maybe I shouldn't have done that. So we've kind of, you know, covered up those seams, and if I bring all of these back, we actually created a new one there, didn't we? Yeah, see, I went too close to the line one time. Oh, I see. So this is another risk that because your original texture, maybe I screwed up. Yeah, I'm screwing up somewhere because there's not enough colors, and so I'm getting confused by the grays and the blacks. So the gray ones are the ones we want to get rid of. Want to cover up the seams, and we don't want any of these that are hanging out over the edge. So we definitely want to get rid of all of the edges. All of the edges. There's a shape that I used to have a template for that's like this star shape, and then you can just trim around. But because I used such big circles here, I'm worried that if I used a template like that, it wouldn't really cover it. So we definitely want to cover up these partial squares, and unfortunately we're going to end up keeping, oh no, that's just a poorly, yeah, so that's just a poorly rendered square because we're in, okay, so I was probably fine before. What do we got going on here? Yeah, so I've got rid of all the edges, and I still need to come in here and kind of trim out the middle without covering up too much of the, okay, so get rid of that. Get rid of this, this is fine. we can get rid of that. We can come in here as far as we want. And we can get rid of this. Okay, so if we turn off all these, we can kind of see the shape I made. Turn up the opacity. Alright, so we cut out, you know, all the detail of our overlay texture. We're just kind of patching in that part there. And so now if we turn everybody back on, yeah, and if we cut and paste this, cut and merge all the layers, turn all these guys off, oops, let's just make sure we can, so now we have, oops, now we have a tileable texture, right? And the quality of those circles is because we're zoomed in, or you know, they weren't that well done in the first place. Yeah, okay, so okay, so we've kind of seen how we can. So there we have got a tileable texture, right? Which is a really complicated way of sort of introducing us to the problem. This works okay if you're only tiling in the XY. There's an issue if these are the sides of a cube. Okay, cool. That's good to know. So if these are the sides of the cube, we actually end up having, so we end up unwrapping the cube like this, right? Can I do this? Yeah, nice. So 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. I'm going to slide them slightly apart, just so we can see the seams. I think this is the wrong one. Yeah, so let's come over here. Okay, so just so we can see the seams for a second. And I'll put this one over here, and I'll do the same thing. Okay, so this is like the cube, like the 4 sides of a cube if we unrolled them, and we haven't done the tops or the bottoms yet. And that's where things get tricky, because one of those will tile okay if we, you know, the top that folds down, it will tile okay. It will come around here and it'll tile fine. The next one, though, will not, because it doesn't just tile like this. It's actually rotated, right? This, from this guy's perspective, he's folded around and he's on this edge, and so you actually, if you want to see what that would look like, you have to rotate rotate 90 like this. So he actually doesn't line up anymore, and so to create a top is quite interesting. You end up it's a complicated problem. You end up having to roll these guys around in kind of a well, I can show you. So let's say we wanted to set this up to make a center. We can, let's see, which one's this? Okay, so we'll move this one down to the bottom. We will move this one over here, somewhere around there. And normally I'd zoom in and make sure this is all right, or I'd have a template set up, but right, so I haven't, did I, you know what? Let's go back here. I'm not sure. Oh wait, that's not it right either. Paste, paste, paste. One more move. Okay, so we got all of our 4 back. I had one of them rotated and I couldn't remember which one was rotated, so I apologize. So let's move this one over here, maybe, and this one up here. This one over here. I'm just trying to rough it in at the moment. So again, like I said, this is not right. If we're trying to imagine creating a top here, like we want to put a top here, it works right now, but that's because these guys are not in the orientation they should be. This guy is the only one. This guy would actually rotate it 90 degrees this way, this guy 90 degrees this way, so let's do that. We'll rotate him, transform, rotate like that, and him we will rotate like that, and him we have to rotate 180 degrees. So now we see, you know, we've got to have a texture that, you know, matches each of these sides. It's going to be symmetrical in a way because each of those edges are going to duplicate each other. And that in and of itself is not particularly difficult. You could just take, like, I'm just going to hack it right now, but you could just take this bottom, you know, and cut and paste it and rotate that like this, and then, you know, move that. Where is it? There it is. You know, move that here. I didn't cut enough of it, but you get the idea. We can rotate that again, and oops. You know, line that one up with that, and so on. Let me show you what I did. I'll do it one more time. And put that one over here. Okay. Again, normally I'd be zoomed in. So if we take our center one out, you know, I can see I've created tileable sides with all the, I didn't take much care in, oh wait. Yeah, okay, that's the original, right? I didn't take a whole lot of care in how I carved that side out, but you can see how they all line up with their neighbor, and so if we folded these sides back down to make a box, it would line up. And actually, let me go ahead and fix this one. We will merge these together, and I will take white paint and basically get rid of these partial ones, right? So we will make a good texture out of this because I clipped poorly, but now look, we've got a texture that tiles with all of the sides. That's all well and good. And if you only had to make a cube, you'd be done. But the problem is, oh, I merged everything, didn't I? Crap. Okay, so we want to undo the merge. Yeah, I only wanted to merge these layers. Alright, so back to what we were doing. Okay, so let me clean these up. I can't help but think this would have been better with color, but that's okay. Alright, so again, we've got this top that tiles with all the sides. The problem is it doesn't tile with itself anymore. So if you needed it for a game like Mythruna, where, you know, you might have blocks side to side, now you've got these seams. And actually for most of Mythruna's tiles, that's exactly what happens. I'll show you. Actually, what happens in Mythruna is that I don't match those edges up. So if we select any of these, let me think of something with actually the cobble will work. So the cobble cube. If you look, so from this angle, the textures line up, right? But because this is the same textures on the top, that tiles nicely. But if you go over here, now you see a seam. They don't tile up because I did not change this top texture to match the edges. And likewise, the back is even worse, right? These sides don't line up, just the one. But because of that, if the ground is set to the cobble cube, it tiles nicely because this texture already tiles with itself. And so, that's all good. Now, if I had fixed this texture like I fixed this one, it wouldn't tile here anymore because we'd see seams. So getting it to match up with this seam and also be tileable means that every side is going to be symmetrical, in the sense that whatever mark you have here, you have to have on the other side, because it's got to be able to rotate all the way around. And so then it'll match the other side, and it will match all of the tops as they move around. And so that's the tricky part. And if there's one texture in Mythruna that actually does this. I took the time and I made a separate top texture. What do we call it? It's just rock, I think. So let's move on down. Rock cube. So in this one, I took the time to kind of make sure all of these lined up with their sides. Mostly, I had to make some compromises. But so they mostly line up all with their sides. So each of these, if you can see, this is kind of starting to look symmetrical, right? Because I had to copy the edges around in different things. And then I had to make some compromises to make it more tileable. Because you can already see maybe this edge doesn't quite match up with that one, and that's kind of true. If we move, I got as close as I could, but because I was using a pre-existing texture, so mostly I tried, it kind of matches. You can kind of see there's a little bit of a seam here, but I tried to hide it as best as I could in the matchup. So you can kind of see where the seams happen, but for the most part, this one tiles. It also looks more boring because you can really see the repeats because there's repeats in the texture itself. So all that being said, when you see a block world game like Mythruna and you happen to notice that some of the textures tile this way, and also don't have any noticeable seams on these edges, somebody went through a lot of trouble to make that happen. And so that was a whole long explanation to show why cubes are hard. And in the case of a sphere, we don't have to worry about that because we only have to work on the seams for the tops and the sides here, because for a sphere we're never going to tile this top texture because, well, let's create a block type and I'll show you. So let's create test. We'll make a sphere and we'll set the side to rock. Yeah. Okay, so this is a rock. Let me set the ground back to something boring so that we can see what we're doing. Okay. So already the sphere is looking okay, but see, we've got a thing here. So if we come down here, and I can't remember which one is the top, but I'm pretty sure it's 4 and 5. So we come down here and set 4 to rock top. Yeah. So we're good. We've hidden the seam for the most part here, and that's good enough because, like, even if I put all of the, so if I make this the ground, right? Because it's a sphere, those sides aren't going to line up. They only have to be self-sufficient. So for a pumpkin, we can make a top that doesn't have to tile with itself, and we can make sides that tile horizontally, and then customize the top to match all of the different sides, and we'll be fine. I think I will. I think I'll do the same for a top and a bottom. I'll just have the same. So anyway, that was a long story to show why tiling for cubes is hard and tiling for a sphere, in this case, because I've treated the sides as quads, that are just shaped to the sphere, will be a little easier. There's some distortion that happens that I'll have to fix later, but there's a half a dozen ways to texture map a sphere, and this is one of the more straightforward ways because you can think about it in a cubic way, right, where you got one side, another side, and so on. All right, so long story short, so let's get to what we're actually going to do. Wow, it created two of them the same name. Okay, so let's get rid of all these layers. Right, we're all actually, just in case I want to go back, let's change the name to sample dots. Okay, and we'll change this one to dots, just in case we need to go back and do some more explanation. The dots were boring, but so new, we're going to make a test field. Doink. Okay, and another new one, and this one will be the actual texture. We're going to make 256 by 256, and we'll call it pumpkin side. And yeah, sure, white background for now. So I actually created some that sample image that I made. Yeah, I took my younger child, my high schooler, bought one of these teeny little pumpkins from the grocery store. Has a white one and a thing, so I'm kind of using this for inspiration. I might steal some colors from it. But I think we want a fully, normal mapped, texture mapped pumpkin. So the actual coloring of the pumpkin is going to be sort of a solid color. I will sort of make a gradient, I think, but mostly we're interested in the bump map and the normal map, and then we'll apply whatever color texture under there we want. So I like the idea that there's going to be these sort of big ridges. And so if we're thinking of a bump map, we want some vertical ridges that are kind of gradients. And so one way we can accomplish that is, let's think about dividing our pumpkin evenly, maybe into 32, because I think 64 would be too big. No, I think 64 will be fine. Okay, so we take that, make a new layer. We set this to sort of a medium gray color and fill it. Fill. Foreground color, yes. Okay, so we've got our initial one, and then we come in here, do the blend options. Gradient overlay, let's try that. But we want the angle to be like this, 100. We want is there an automatic mirror? Style linear, sure, no. So we want a custom gradient. How do I want to make it custom. Aha. Alright, so where was the original one? I think that was this one. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So we customize it here. And we want a middle at the 50% position, 50%. And that's the one we want in the center. And then in each end we want it to be black, basically. So center we want to be white. And then at each end we want to be Okay, so this would be the most extreme pumpkin you could get, right? But let's so yeah, so probably we will definitely alter that in a second. But I want to see what it looks like. Okay. So if we've got our, this is basically a bump map. It is a super extreme bump map. And I'm wrestling with my cable today. So if we cut and paste and make a new layer that's got all of those in there, we can make a normal map from that. So normal map, and it's cool, it's already set up to tile. We shouldn't need to blur it because we're already pretty crazy. Yeah, and that's going to be a crazy bump map. Okay, but let's try it. All right, so okay, so first we're going to want to export as PNG, pumpkin side bumps, save, and we don't want it over here, we want it in Mythruna land. GitHub Mythruna block set. Source, main, resources, textures, pumpkin side bumps, pajoink, and we'll save the normal map. Save export as PNG, pumpkin side normals, save, same place, good, good, good. Okay. Now let's see what we got in pumpkin sides. We'll leave the texture for a minute. It'll look really strange, but that'll be fun. Textures we want pumpkin sides normals.png and pumpkin sides bumps. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Come on, you can do it. Whoops. Did I screw up in the naming? Pumpkin side. Pumpkin side. Singular. All right. So this should look like a fairly weird cobble sphere. Yeah, so see, we've got our sort of bumps. Pretty severe bumps, in fact. But you can imagine if that was, you know, pumpkin colored, we would be seeing sort of the bumps. But again, they're not, they're, that's just a first pass. I just want to make sure it's working. Well, and we need to create one for the top too. But these seams are like, these seams, not the seams, the ridges are sort of not dramatic enough, etc. Like, so we'll come back in a second. And we're going to mess with this gradient because we want these dark places to be narrower. So what we can do is put these here and kind of tighten them up a bit. and put another one here and sort of tighten that one up a bit. Actually, I like this. Yeah, I get it. I clicked in the middle before, and so this gives us like a slightly wider area. And so we should be able to say copy layer style copy. This is actually easier in regular Photoshop, but layer style paste. Oops. Layer style paste. There's certain things I'm used to in Photoshop, and they're just slightly different here because of the nature of JavaScript. Okay, so we've got sort of a more reasonable, I mean, it's still crazy. So let's actually Control A, Control Shift C, Control V. Okay, so we've got our bump map layer, and if I turn all these guys off, I can make it lighter and darker by fading it into sort of the background. Oops, Control A, Control Shift C. Control A, Control Shift C, Control V. Okay, so so that could be our bump map, and then we can duplicate that again and turn that in. Get rid of this one. We can turn this one into bumps, normals, and we will filter that 3D normal map. Okay, so see, we want to blur now because maybe cut the scale down just slightly, blur it a little bit. We ended up putting some artifacts in, I think, by having our gradient such low resolution, and I think we can, yeah, kind of flatten it out a little bit. Okay, that will probably do. And actually the extra kind of ridges don't bother me really. Okay, so we got that. Let's go ahead and re-export these. Export PNG. So we want this one normals. Save. Overwrite existing, yes. And then we'll do this again for export as PNG. Bumps. Save. Save, overwrite. Now let's go ahead and real quickly create a layer for some color. And we'll put it underneath our bumps for the moment. Well, I'm going to turn off the bumps for a second. So let's go over and sample one of these colors over here. I think that's a reasonable. Okay. I clicked OK. Why won't you take... Oh, no. That's not good. Problematic. That has never happened to me before. The color picker will not close. Am I doing something dumb? Oh no. Because we did not save our... Phew! Scary. Okay, so let's just paint this in. Where's the... There it is. Boink. Okay, so now if we wanted to, we could come back here and we could see what's it going to look like. We could... oops, wrong one. See, what's it going to look like? It's going to look something like that, right? It's probably not the color I want in the end, but for now, it'll work. First of all, let's save our PSD so that I don't have to lose it. Yes, pumpkin side PSD. Perfect. And now let's export this as a PNG. Pumpkin side, sure. Save. Okay, so we're good. We should be able to say doink, 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 doink. Alright, let's see what the sides of our pumpkin look like, eh? Alrighty. So that looks very pumpkin-like. Again, there's a issue in the transition. See, that one looks pretty good, that transition. I think there's... Actually, this might be accurate based on the way the lighting is facing. So ignore the top for a second. The sides are looking pretty good. That actually looks very pumpkin-like to me. And so now we could play with the top. And that's, you know, the tricky one. And I'll show you what I mean. Because again, right, from this side, we line up really nicely. And actually, from both two sides, we're going to line up. Oh, no, see, we're backwards. Yeah. Right. I didn't make a symmetrical. Okay, so anyway, we've got normal maps. So see, the reason why normal maps are cool is because if we come in here and we have, you know, the light moves around, you know, it shifts with the shadows and we get these cool lighting effects as the light moves around. And that's why we use normal maps to give us some detail in the bump maps. The bump map actually doesn't make any sense here because there's no detail in the texture, but if I go back and I add some, you know, some variation to the texture, then the bump map will help sort of sell it because it moves where we're sampling the texture based on the angle we're looking and how deep that bump is and stuff. When the color is solid, it doesn't make any sense because it's going to just sample the same color from a different location. Okay, so back to our Photopia. Now we want to take this guy, Control A, Control C. We want to make new file. This one's going to be, sure, pumpkin top. And 256 times 3, which is 512 plus 256, 768. 768 by 768. This will not be our final. This not be our final texture. But what we're going to want to do is, let me see, I can select pixels, select pixels, and then make a new layer, and then we want to black, we want to stroke. Please don't demonetize me, YouTube. I'm not monetized, so this is a joke. Using the word stroke. Okay, so if we take this, whoops, and duplicate this layer, and boop, 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 boop. Okay. Duplicate that again. This one, I'm kind of making a template for the sides of the box that are expanded. You'll see what I mean in a second. And those of you who are like Photoshop experts who might be watching me going, why isn't he naming his layers? You're absolutely right. My layer hygiene is atrocious. Alright, so then these are all of our sort of guidelines for placing our sides, and I'm going to merge these together. Yeah. So this is our guidelines. Center. Center guide. So I'm being better, right? I'm being better. Okay, so we come in here and really, yeah, even Photoshop amateur. I long time ago, I worked for a contracting company, and among other things, we were overflow contractors for Netscape. Netscape would sell servers to people, and with that they would bundle a certain number of hours of contracting time to either design websites or set up web servers and stuff. I mean, this is back in the 90s when all that was like brand new, and HTML was like a strange language to a lot of people. So we got overflow contractor work one time to NASA. Netscape had sold some stuff to NASA, and came bundled with some number of hours, and we were their overflow contractor. Oops. Ooh. Because I shifted. Yeah. And so we had to like do some website design for them. Over a weekend, and present like 3 different designs, and I had never used Photoshop before. You know what? Something is wrong with our where did my gradients go? Like I have like they disappeared somewhere. All of my detail disappeared. Anyway, so I bought a book and I took a crash course on making Photoshop back in the 90s. Photoshop was a lot simpler back then too, but it was I find their user interface a little bit obtuse. And learning layers and how, I mean, it's all very magical and so on, but yeah, oh, it copied the effects over. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so we've got our guides. I'm gonna have to copy this again. Somewhere we ended up, or maybe I accidentally pasted in my gradient settings. Okay, so this is way better. I think that's what happened. So sorry about that, guys. And so we'll call north, south, and I had never done really that level of website design too, where we just like pie in the sky 3 different separate ideas, and it was kind of fun, like spitballing. So we did kind of a normal one that had some like a simple banner and some stuff off to the side, and then I did this one kind of far out galaxy looking one that was purples and blacks with star fields and things in the background. I thought that one was my favorite one. Oh, this one is the north one. I can't remember what the third one was, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I get to say that I did work for. They actually flew us out to NASA Ames Research Center out on the West Coast, and I got to meet there and tour a little bit of this facility. It was kind of cool. All right, so the north one let's pretend that the south one is the natural one, and so just to be sure, we're gonna rotate the north one 180 degrees because I know they're not symmetrical. So we rotate the north one. We'll rotate the east one 90 degrees to the right, clockwise. Okay, and then the west one the other way. Rotate it 90 degrees to the west. Okay. Because see, these aren't really symmetrical. Right, so this is where we start. We want to make sure that whatever we put in the center here will line up with these guys. And that's kind of annoying, but true. And I've kind of made my job harder because of these gradients and things, but I think it's maybe a clearer example of what I was talking about anyway. So now what do I want to do? I want to take these, I think what I want to do is like take half of them and flip them around 180 degrees. So we'll start with the north one. Ah, crap. I mean the south one. I meant the south one anyway. So let's grab somewhere around here. And we want to grab, really I need 128. And I'm picky, so I'm going to 256 by 128. And I think I have to shift it over one. Yeah. Alright, so we'll Control C, Control V, and now transform, flip vertically. And so now if I come in here, technically I didn't need to flip vertically because it's already tileable from top to bottom, but if this was a complicated texture, basically I want this seam to be perfect, and so one way to get it perfect but boring is to take it and just flip it over so that, you know, kind of a mirror image. So this is like a mirror here. And then what we'll do is we'll duplicate this layer and we will rotate this counterclockwise 90 degrees, and that will be our west one over here, right? Or east, rather. So actually, let's just keep duplicating the same layer so that we're not... Okay, so this one is going to be the other way, so we'll transform this one the other way. And you'll see what I mean by the fact that they don't line up, and you're like, why are you covering up all this stuff? Just trust me, it'll work in a second. Okay, so I didn't actually grab enough. Well, that's okay, because we're going to get rid of the centers anyway. Okay, so this one, we duplicate one more time, and we rotate this one 180 degrees. And so now we've got mirror images of all of the various sides. We could actually get rid of these if we wanted to and just work on this part. And maybe I didn't need to do... Well, no, I know why I did it this way. Okay. So let's just take one example here. In order to get these gradients to line up, one easy way is to take this and then transform the layer such that we bring these corners in to the center. And fortunately, Photoshop lets us do that. Like, I should be able to take this one and bring it in. Like, I'm holding the shift key, so it's only letting me go horizontal. And we should be able to make the width 128, and then do this one. And similarly make the blank. Okay. Now we are very 100% sure that those line up with our south one here. See? Look at how great they line up. And so we'll do the same thing to these other layers. Transform, not skew. Transform, distort. That's what I want. Okay, so then we do shift. Why isn't it changing? It's not telling me what the height is. Huh. Transform, distort. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, it's not telling me. Okay, well that's not fair. Oh, this one would have told me. Oh, it's only, that's weird. Okay, so Photopia is being weird. So we've got sort of these, we might have some patching to do, but I think I'm going to leave, because it's being inconsistent with how it's letting me, by the way, thanks for hanging around, guys. I know we're just about over time. I think we can finish. See, now it's doing it. Height 128. Maybe it's the side of the thing you're skewing. Okay. So I could have done one of these and copied it, but I kind of wanted to illustrate what we're doing here. So transform, distort. It's a little, who's that little guy? Oh, nice. It's taking me to the center. Well, I could have dragged a lot faster then, couldn't I? Okay, so look, we've got an at least initial pass. I wonder if this one could be slid over by 1 pixel. Yeah, so we kind of, that's better, but there's a little patch that has to happen here. This might get us started, so let me take a shot of this. So we want it to be 256 by 256. Come on, mouse hand. Okay. And there we go. And I think we can Control Shift C. New. Wait, did I already? Let's, no, I didn't create a pumpkin top. So let's do pumpkin top. And create, and then paste. There we go. Okay, and then duplicate it again to make our normal map. You know, we've got a little patching to do, but this, so the normal map will be kind of ugly. But, oh, and we want to use the same settings we used before, which I think, that's problematic. I can't remember what settings I used before. Okay, so that's important. We need to remake the normal maps. And use consistent settings. So I think we did like 1.6 here, maybe 50% blur, and then I set the high something like that. Maybe blur I did as high as 2. Yeah, that's what I did. So 2, 50%, 2, 50, 70. Okay. All right. And then we will do the same thing over here. Filter, normal map. 2, 50, 70. See, it's important that they line up as much as possible. Okay, bumps, normals. Let's see if how close we were. Oh yeah, in fact this one's maybe maybe we blurred a little more before, but actually I think this, I'm okay with this, but we need to re-export it. Let's just resave this one. Save, yes, overwrite. Export as PNG. By the way, you always want to make sure your normal maps are PNG, because they need to be lossless. JPEG will, make a pretty picture, but for normal maps, we are encoding a vector, 3 values into RGB, so they're not really RGB values, and so things like JPEG will distort your normals. So don't do it, kids. Okay, so that one's good. Let's go ahead and save. I'm going to save this one too, because I'm going to come back later and do some more work when we're not on a live stream. File, save as PSD, save. File, export as PNG. Top normals. Save. Nice, yeah. PNG was sort of brand new after GIF, because GIF had patents, the LZH Limpleziv patent, and so when whoever started trying to claim royalties on that, PNG came out. PNG is actually better in a lot of ways, so it was fine. Okay, so, but widespread adoption did not happen instantly, so I got to live through that growing pains. I think I can just cut and paste this. So I already created the top. Okay, I didn't see what I grabbed. Diffuse through the bottom of the curly brace. So diffuse through the bottom of the curly brace, and then instead of side, yes, for that we can say side for now. In fact, like eventually the top is going to be way different than the sides, because it'll have the stem and different coloring for all that stuff. So top, 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 top. All right, let's see. We're going to have to mess with the configuration a little bit, but we should be able to get a pumpkin-looking thing. And I'll see how much touch-up I will have to do after the fact. Okay, so we still haven't set our top yet. That's where we go in here. And we say, see, the top needs to be pumpkin top. And this needs to be also pumpkin top. Okay, look at that. That looks very pumpkin-like to me. I don't know about, so there's a seam here. I screwed something up, or the normal map is messed up, but 3 of the sides look good. And I may have accidentally mirrored that one, which could be why we get an artifact here. But check it out. We've got a pumpkin with no stem, but that's the easy part, relatively speaking. And you see that some of these, there's like a wavy line, which for a pumpkin is probably okay, but that's a distortion in how the texture coordinates were calculated when the sphere was generated, and I can go fix those later to some extent. But not bad. I think it's pretty good. I think that's probably good enough. I'll fix this side. I'm not sure what's going on there, but the fact that there's a distortion here at the edge indicates that it may be how the normal map was generated. Oh, I bet the normal map is trying to tile. So, yeah. So the normal map is basically trying to bleed over into this other side. Or it's that I did. Let us turn off tiling for the top, because there should not be any tiling in the top. Alright, so pumpkin top, side, no, there should be no tiling, because we're never going to tile the tops. Let's try again just to see if that fixed it, because that would make me feel really good if we could 100% have that working before I cut off for the night. And then go make a baked potato, I think. Alright, so... Okay, so we still... I didn't save it, so we still got to go flip those back to top. Top. Alrighty. So it looks good, looks good. Looks better. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, so I think this is a normal map artifact. I suspect if I looked into the normal map that there's a little, that it created an edge, and that basically you can see the edge here. When we get really close, you can see how it's kind of flat here. And so what I think happens is that the normal map treated this like a hard edge, and so generated like normals along the edge. Yeah, you can see it did. Like you get used to seeing it. Like I can tell that the coloring is different here, right? And it's probably the same up here. Yeah. So it kind of created a weird edge for us. It really shouldn't have tiled anyway, because that would have been awful. But what I'm going to have to do is create a layer that's, well, I'm not going to do it now because I'm totally fine. I think this looks fine. I think that for now, there's a whole, basically I'm going to have to redo all these materials and textures when I use physically based rendering, PBR later. So I don't want to do too much. And the fact that you guys haven't complained about the seams already and the textures, I think this is going to be okay for now. I might, that one edge, I might clean it up. I can essentially, I think, just chop this down by like 2 or 3 pixels. Maybe let's try that. It won't hurt anything. Oh, let me go ahead and save this so we don't have to select it again. Okay, it won't hurt anything, and it'll only take a second. So let's say we want to let's say 8 pixels, so 256, so 248 by 248. So 4 pixels on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll cut that. Paste it. And so like now we've got one like this. And then what we can do is transform, scale, pull that guy, oops, we want him to right but down to the edge, and this guy right up to the edge. Oops, okay. Shave it. Now hopefully our gradient's held. Let's see. Anybody taking bets? Save. Just the thing that always fascinates me about texturing is all of the different variables you have to keep track of in your mind if you want things to tile and seam correctly. And I've been making tileable textures since the 90s, yeah, so 30 years now almost, and the fact that it's still the same is kind of funny. Okay, so let's see, did we get better? I think it's better, but not perfect. So I might have to get more drastic. But it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely better. Because like that back here, like this, you almost can't tell. There's an artifact here, though. An artifact here. Anyway, close enough. I mean, you guys would recognize that as a pumpkin, and like I said, I got to redo all these someday anyway. Yeah, so from back here, you can hardly tell. And this, honestly, this artifact may be a problem with the how the tangents and things are generated. When you have normal maps, there's these tangent lines. So in addition to the surface normals, which are what these blue lines are, you have these tangent lines because for the normal map, it needs to know in this particular space, you know, what does up, down, left, right mean? What does X, Y, Z mean in this space? And of course this sort of interpolates across the surface of the sphere, but those are the, anyway. But what I wanted to see is over here as we move the light around. Yeah, see, as we move the light around, yeah, see, it kind of disappears. So it might actually be an artifact in how those, except for these don't have that problem. Anyway, check it out though. That's really dramatic. That shadowing, that's really cool. So from back here, that's and so I'll tonight I'll add, you know, the stem area to the top and the bottom, which would kind of be an indentation with some brown in it and maybe some leaves. Yeah, some leaves would be cool, right? A couple little leafy sprigs or something. Actually, pumpkins don't have leaves on the top. Anyway, so I think we got a lot done. Hopefully it was educational. I don't know if you guys have ever had to mess with textures before, but texture mapping. But now you've seen how to tile textures in various different ways and techniques to use. I maybe could have had some better textures to use, but all right. So we will go ahead and start wrapping up. Let's see. Gotta pull up my thing here, and we'll do the thanks. Any last minute questions? I hope you guys have a great week and productive week. I'll be working on texturing and modeling. Actually, I'm going to try to get my server up this weekend. I'll put a notice out on Discord and the and Twitter. Is it still called Twitter, or is it Zitter? Or another way to say X is, you know, the SH sound, but I'm not going to say that out loud. Anyway, so I'll try to put my server back up this weekend with a properly refurbished UPS, and I'll announce that on Twitter and Discord and so on if I get it working by Sunday. And then that way I'm going to reset it probably to the world that Ron found, the 321 world, because I think that's cool that we start on the edge of a volcano, and I may build some towers up there so that we can see them from, because from most of the side of that mountain you can see the spawn tower up top, you know, from really far away, and so I think that'd be cool to have a couple more castle towers up there, and then we can you know, build out things around that mountain and get ready for the Halloween party at the end of October, which I'm thinking it's going to be that Friday the 27th or whatever, but there's 100 things going on that weekend, so I have to see. Thanks for joining, everybody, and I hope you have a great productive week, and I will see you guys on Discord and elsewhere. Thanks a lot.